Oh my goodness, welcome back. It's a late night reaction video. It might not be late night when you watch this, but it's currently 11:45 on a school night. Your girl is on summer break and she also needs to take her Lexapro. So we're going to do that and then we are going to react to Losing is Good Actually by Team 6K. Again, this recommendation for reaction came from my Discord. If you haven't joined my Discord yet, please do. It's fun. It's a good gang of people just talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! And if you ever have recommendations for me, videos for me to react to, you can leave them there. So yeah, let's react. Is Losing good? Preemptively, I'm gonna say yes. But my perspective on why losing is good is because it helps me become a more emotionally regulated human who's a perfectionist and gives up immediately when she loses. I don't like losing, so. Okay, losing is good. Actually, let's get into it. I took my medication. I'm medicated. I'm trying to be hydrated. Let's watch
Winning
this
and
video.
losing seems like the simplest concept in all of gaming, but if you delve deeper into it, you realize that it's a lot more complicated than you might think.
But undead, how could there possibly be anything more complicated about it?
Don't interrupt me. And well, as I was about to say, sometimes losing is actually the right thing to do. First of all, losing can actually be a teaching moment. This is the simplest aspect of this iceberg. If you lose a duel, then you can look back on it to see if there's anything you can.
Okay, this is kind of what I was anticipating for this video is losing can be good if you mentally approach it from a how can I improve standpoint. Something I'm very grateful that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has given me is more emotional regulation around losing. So I am the type of person who, if it doesn't come easily to me, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't like feeling like a failure, and I'm not someone who, like, as a teacher, because that's my full-time job, right? I'm very much like mistakes is how we learn. But in my personal life, I'm like, you made a mistake? No. But even professionals like lose, and even like what it says right now, like sometimes you're just, let me make myself a little smaller so you can see what it says on the screen. Sometimes you're just unlucky. Sometimes you brick, and you have to, I do think it is important to be able to look though at, like, did you just brick and there wasn't things you could do differently? Because something I will notice when I remember when I was very, very early in my Yu-Gi-Oh career playing at a locals, and I felt so proud because I beat someone, I won a match, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I bricked," and maybe they did brick all, like, I think we went to, I think I won in two. They could have bricked, but there was kind of this feeling of like, I felt like it was being said to me as a like, well, you didn't actually win. I bricked. So I will say, I do think sometimes in Yu-Gi-Oh, we get a little too comfortable being like, oh, I bricked. So you have to have the mindset around losing for it to actually be good. And as someone who still sometimes gets a little mad about losing, it's definitely helped me become a better person. Do I like losing? No. Do I like feeling like I don't know things? No. But like, Yu-Gi-Oh is one of those games that if you, like me, are a perfectionist, buckle up, kid, because it's also going to be a therapy lesson for you. Because like you just, you cannot win them all.
Do different to be able to win more in the future. A lot of the time, you played your own deck wrong. You made the wrong plays, and by looking back on that duel, you can think to yourself, what if you made a different move? What if you made the moves you made at a different time? Maybe the combo you did was the wrong one for that matchup. A lot of the time, you didn't account for the opponent's cards. They did something that surprised you, that gave them the win because you didn't plan for it.
So to this note of getting better by analyzing your moves, I think this is just getting a play group together that does that. I've been very grateful where that's just kind of like the people I play with. Of after the duel, there's very often like, what could I have done? What was my hand? Or just like taking the time after a duel to be like, okay, this is what caused this to happen. And then also sometimes having that conversation with your opponent, because it's like, oh man, if I had done this instead, and then they could have been like, I had the ash. Like, sometimes like they had the answer for everything you did. Or sometimes you do. I often feel like the idea of like, oh, you have to ash this card in a deck, or you have to imperm this card. It's not always valid. Like I wish there was a cheat sheet for like, here's how to beat Malice. Here's how to beat Cool Tunes. Unfortunately, maybe fortunately, because it's what makes Yu-Gi-Oh such a great game, there's so many different lines and things that people can do. So just telling you to like imperm the first thing they normal summon in cold tunes is not a guaranteed win. But having the conversation with the person after and like looking at your hands and being like, hey, like, you know, this is what you impermed. Like, okay, well, where would have been like the choke point? Like asking your opponent, where could I have stopped you? And because sometimes the answer is like, honestly, I had enough to push through whatever you had going on. But oftentimes I feel like I've gotten better because it's like, you know, this is where I was like, the Arthalion, I'm stopping. Because after a lot of conversations, it was like, that seems to be a choke point just through the combo line. I'm going to stop the Arthalion. Is it going to work every time? No. But it's having the mindset of, I lost. What could I have done better? I wouldn't even say what could I have done to win. It's just like, how could I have played more optimally?
You have to map out your plays according to what the opponent is capable of doing to stop you from doing what you're trying to do. And that plan has to keep in mind everything the opponents have or could have. You even have to be prepared for things you don't know for certain, like face downs and hand traps. Preparing for the worst means that you aren't going to be caught off guard. The opponent will be forced to be on their best play because they can't get a free win out of you, at least as far as smart gameplay is concerned. If you don't consider what the opponent has or could have, they can...
This is so hard to do, though. It's so hard, like, to think about my own cards and think about your cards. I think this is, like, as a newer player, I sometimes get in my head about, like, oh, why I'm not thinking about draw. I'm playing into Ash. I'm not considering the nib. This is a high-level skill. Okay, I get that, like, in order to be, like, good at Yu-Gi-Oh!, it's, like, a basic. It's a high-level skill. We have time. We're learning. It's okay, especially, like it said at the beginning of this video. You have to know what your deck does. And genuinely, like, our brains are like computers. There's only so much RAM that we got going on. And if you're cognitive, like, if you're full of just thinking of, like, how do I play my deck? It's going to be really hard to think about how you play your deck and then how your opponent plays their deck and what cards they could have and how you can play around this. And I think this comes from a lot of time, and it's something, this is what I recommend when you're learning. I think what made me a better player, I stuck with Malice. Find something you like, stick with it, free up the RAM storage space in your brain so you're no longer having to spend so much cognitive effort thinking about what you're doing, and you can start freeing up space to do this and think about what your opponent is doing, could possibly do, and start playing around stuff.
And take advantage of that very easily. Like if the opponent has face down cards but no cards in hand, I can be sure it's not Raigeki Break. If they have a card in hand that causes a delay when I put any card in grave, and that delay can't...
Unless you're playing against me and I set a super poly and have no cards in hand, because that's just me not knowing that the card needs, I always forget. You can't trust what I'm doing.
And have been caused by any other card that they have, it could be a DD Crow. Study popular cards and how they work so you can check for unknown information using context to make it known. Sometimes you have no way of knowing what the opponent can do because you just aren't very familiar with their deck, but by losing to them you can become more familiar with what they are trying to do and what they're capable of, so you can prepare better for it. Why should I care about Shiranui Spectral Sword Engrave? Well, it gives them a free synchro, but if you don't know what the synchros do, you have no reason to care. But if you are afraid of a free Shogun Saga or Sun Saga, you should stop the Spectral Sword. That's information that you'll gain from losing to them, and it'll make you more likely to win afterwards. You might have built your deck wrong in many different ways. If you find yourself bricking often, you...
Okay, look, I'm not gonna lie, this video is kind of just, it's like giving me anxiety. It's kind of stressing me out because, like, yes, these are all things to do, but, like, you don't have to do these all the time. You don't have to do these immediately. This is not like, this is a lot of effort. This is a lot of effort to, like, look at your deck, build it correctly, study opponent's cards. If you lose a match to a deck, like I've been playing on Omega and there's, what is it, like Crimson Dragon. There's like been decks I've been playing. Like, have I looked up what and read what the cards do? No, because I have other stuff I'm doing in life. And sometimes you can have fun. I really think this is like, if you start feeling like I really want to win more in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm not having fun. That's the thing too. Winning does not equate to fun. Okay? Like if you're having fun and or just like pick one of these things. Because I'm watching this and I'm like, this is giving like a really long list of stuff that like, the video is called Losing is Good, actually. And then it's like, here's 10 things you should do right now to ensure you don't lose. And like a lot of us have lives. And so you can't do all this and it's perfectly fine. Sometimes you just gotta pick something. I think these are good like tips, but it's not like the be all end all. Like you need to quit what you're doing right now and read every possible card in every possible deck that you're going to encounter. Like, that's just, I think, unrealistic. I think the pros do it, but that's because they either make the time, have the time. Like, I just, like, personally, I'm not going to beat myself up for not doing that because there's other things in life that I do other than Yu-Gi-Oh!
You should include a higher concentration of consistency pieces or play a more consistent skill. Maybe your deck has cards in it that don't actually help you in that format and you'll feel like they're just dead weight whenever you use them or try to use them. You should cut those cards out of your deck. Maybe there are big threats in the format that your deck isn't prepared to deal with. You should include ways to deal with them or adjust your overall game plan to play around them. It could be that no matter what changes you make, the deck you've been playing just isn't positioned well against the most popular deck.
I think this is where yeah, I've talked about this in other videos. It's kind of an unfortunate part of Yu-Gi-Oh! That like your pet deck just might not do well. And that is something, again, if you're having fun and you have a play group that you're playing similar like power level, like you don't have to be a meta person and net deck and do all these things. But I have noticed sometimes I will hear frustrations from players who I look at what they're playing and I'm like, you gotta be realistic with what you're trying to do, right? If you're trying to go in and win a bunch of locals and you are showing up with this like homebrew hodgepodge 2002 deck, like, and then you lose and then you're like, oh, they don't like the game and it's like a game of Uno and whoever won the dice roll and blah, 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 and then you're like complaining. I think this is like where we're saying like, okay, if losing is causing you stress, if you don't like losing, sometimes it is your deck. And unfortunately, there's not a great casual scene in Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm sorry. I wish there was. I wish you could bring whatever you wanted to locals and have a blasty blast. That's not always possible. So sometimes, yeah, your deck, you just might, you gotta pick your lane. Like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to like have fun and play your deck? Then you need to do things to go down like that avenue and make that possible for yourself. Are you trying to top locals? Then there's things you need to do to make that possible for yourself. Are you trying to be the next world champion of Yu-Gi-Oh? Like you gotta, again, I think that's too, like, if you're like me and you're watching this and you're like, I have Yu-Gi-Oh homework for the next like 3 weeks. You don't. You just have to like think to yourself, like, what do you want out of the game? What do you value? And if you feel like you're losing a lot and you don't like that, because losing isn't fun, like, right, then here's some things you can do.
And you should play another deck for that format that has better matchups for better overall opportunities for taking dubs. Just to show an example of all these different changes to your deck, I'll take a look at one of mine. Dark Magician back when Dragoon came out. This deck list had a solid game plan that Dark Magician players still use to this day, using Hieratic Seal as an introductory interruption to bait out opponents' board breakers to make the Dragoon land a bit safer to the field. Problem was that even though this game plan was solid and it worked, as time went on more powerful decks came out that really didn't give a damn about it for one reason or another, giving more bad matchups to the deck. So I needed to find out what the problem was and how to solve it. Was the deck bricking? Not very often, but enough that I decided to play more Illusion of Chaos. Did the deck have dead cards? Yes. Navigation was no longer useful unless I already had everything I needed. It was the last thing I'd ever search for, so I cut it to brick on it less often. Were there threats in the meta I couldn't deal with? Yes. I had no hope going second against Tachyon, so I devised a game plan to play through Transmigration and Spiral Galaxy in a way that I could still win that turn. Despite all these changes, I couldn't realistically play through Droll, so because of that card's popularity, I had to pick a different deck to play that could win more often against the Droll being dropped on me. I felt bad that I couldn't solve every problem, but I enjoyed the process regardless and saw people doing well in tournaments with some of my...
I mean, okay, that just made me think of, like, I love my Fairy Tale Magistus deck, and I haven't really thought through how to play through Droll or Ash, or, like, I do think there's times where it dies to a single hand trap, but, like, I wouldn't give it up, because that's what I'm saying, like, you gotta pick what you value. I'm not trying to win every single game, and I really like my deck, and so it's like, I don't think you have to give up on a deck that you really like because it dies to Droll and Droll's really popular, or it can't play through Ash, or if you get Fuad, like, you know what I mean? Like, again, think about what you want out of the game and don't let like the mindset of like, you must play the very best and you have to cut out all the dead weight and you can't do like, if you're having fun, play the deck you like and just realize that if it dies to droll, but it's two out of 40, a 1 out of 20 chance. What is that? 20%? There's like, no, that's too high of a percentage. 1 out of 20, carry the 5% chance that your opponent draws it. I don't know. It's summer break. I don't have to do math. But basically, like, they either have the hand trap or they don't. I wouldn't give up an entire deck because of a hand trap existing in the current meta. But that's just me.
Ideas. I never would have made that progress, learned the matchups, made my deck better, and sorted out a solid plan for the format had I not allowed myself to lose to Tachyon as much as possible to examine every aspect of it, to a point where I could legitimately devise a perfect counter for the game plan, including staples that aren't a draw. And I wouldn't have made the decision to pick another deck if I hadn't lost to draw so many times as I had. Losing gave me the tools to win so much more often because I paid attention to the lessons that those losses were giving me. I always like to say in the Discord, the only L's we take are lessons, and with that philosophy, myself and others are able to not only become better duelists, but better duelists are able to prepare themselves for their plan in the format. Planning your approach to a format is something I don't see people really discussing because typically most people will just play the decks they like and just switch to something else that they like if that doesn't work. That's totally fine, but it's not optimized. Before you start playing the month of ranked, or you start playing the tournament, or you start playing the format overall, you shouldn't just consider each duel winner.
Again, I think this, I feel like I'm a broken record, but like I watch this, and as someone who can be a bit of a perfectionist and doesn't like losing and whatever, I kind of internalize some of these things of like, don't just try, you need to plan. I play ranked on Omega. I was the type of person who would join a ranked league match with a character that I don't even play because I got a new skin. And you might, especially in like games like League where I have like 4 other people, you might be like, oh my gosh, you're the worst person ever. I just like, to me, the game's the game. Would it be cool to rank up? Sure. But it's not like if I lose, I guess I appreciate like ranked formats because then there's like an effort given. And I like giving my best effort and other people giving their best effort. And it doesn't really bother me if I like go down in the rankings. I will say I do think it's really cool. I want to get out of bronze in Omega. But like, again, these are things that if you have to consider what you value. What do you want out of the game of Yu-Gi-Oh? If you don't have the time, like this game, I feel like can already be so inaccessible, and having these hard and fast rules or even just having like, you have to plan for the format. You have to study the deck, study the cards. You can just have funsies. It's also okay to play the deck you like and not go into everything in research. And I will say, like, I think I was way too careful, self-conscious. None of those are synonymous. At this point, I'm just saying words. I didn't want to go to tournaments because I wanted to know my deck fully. I was very like, I just don't want to show up and not know what I'm doing and like not know what my opponents are doing. And I didn't want to be seen as a failure. I didn't want to be seen as dumb. I didn't want to be seen as bad. And then I see other people that show up to tournaments with like decks that they literally like built the night before. And I think there's a line, right? I think especially with like in-person play, and especially if it's like a higher stakes tournament, if there's like pricing that people care about, like if it, and there's time limits, right? So if you show up with a deck that you really don't know what you're doing and then you have to take forever to read it, like I don't think that's fair to your opponent. But on the same side, I think I took it to the other extreme of where like I refused to go participate with the community because I was so worried about not being good enough. And by being so scared of not being good enough, I wasn't allowing myself the opportunity to get better because I just didn't want to try until I thought there is no good enough. You can play what you want when you want. Let's all play ranked Omega and just like have fun doing it.
Or lose. You should instead consider your overall goal and what is needed in order to reach that goal. There is no goal other than delusion that requires you to have a 100% win rate. The best duelists in the world don't have a 100% win rate, and you aren't some special exception who's going to eclipse them all. That's because the high win rates that they do have are actually as high as they are, not in spite of how many losses they get, but often because of how many losses they get. I don't mean this in the way of, those losses taught them how to tackle the format. In this case, I'm talking about their win rates after they figured out their plan. You see, if your goal is King of Games, you don't need to win every game. You just need to win 5 times in a row at some point while you're in Legend 5. If your goal is to win a tournament, your goal isn't to win every single duel, but to win 2 out of 3 duels against each opponent. And if your goal is to top the KC Cup, your goal is not to have a 100% win rate, is to get as many points as possible. None of these goals need you to have a 100% win rate. But for the sake of the argument, let's try to debunk this notion. Maybe you're thinking, if I can get good enough at this game, and I have a strategy that is so much better than everybody else's, I can get to 100% win rate. Well, at some point in your perfect win streak, the people you duel against are going to catch on to your strategy. They may adjust their game plans to be better suited against your perfect deck, and you may start losing to cards that counter you specifically because you're the main threat now. If that doesn't work, they'll start playing your deck, and at that point, they'll have a great streak going too. But you'll eventually get a mirror match where it's mainly going to be decided by the coin flip or who drew better cards. Maybe you get lucky and win anyway, but if you keep dueling, more and more people play your strategy and counters to your strategy.
Okay, that part was less anxiety inducing because it is something like I do need to remind myself, especially when I'm on like a losing streak or I feel like I'm not doing well. It doesn't matter how optimized you feel things are. You're not going to have a 100% win rate. It's just not. It's delusional to think that you're just going to be able to like every single duel win all of them. And it's a good reminder for those of us who don't like losing and who maybe make it about a personal failing when we don't do well in a little game, to remind ourselves that that is not the case. You're gonna lose. We're gonna lose. It's fine. It's it's the mindset you have about loss that's gonna make the difference versus the actual loss.
You're going to lose eventually. It's statistically impossible not to. You have to accept that losing is inevitable. So, what can you do from that point? At that point, you have to realize that since every deck has situations in which they'll win and ones in which they'll lose, you're going to have to pick what you would rather lose to. For example, if I have to pick between, let's say, Live Twins and Lyralust, I know that Live Twins can pull off an amount of interruptions that can stop absolutely any deck in their tracks, and Lyralust can't do that, but has near perfect consistent access to guaranteed survival and follow-up. Live Twins isn't quite that guaranteed, so Lyralust may lose to a deck that has an easy out or its consistent game plan, while Live Twins may lose to unfortunate draws. There are legitimate benefits to both, but which way would you prefer to lose? On a bigger scale though, the best players often consider either their game plan into each matchup or their statistical matchup spread, or both. If I play Photons, for example, I could play against every single other deck that people are actively playing as much as I can until I optimize my game plan to efficiently deal with all of them equally. After that, I play, let's say, 10 games against each deck, and note the win ratio I have against each of them. Here, I'll figure out what factors led me to losing, whether it be the coin flip, certain draws, or inherent unavoidable aspects of the matchup. A mistake you might make at this point is looking at all the matchup.
Okay, something that's made me think of is just realize too, this is not like a guaranteed. I've known of people, or I've heard of people that do this. Like after a match, they get a little notebook out and they take notes. And did I win the dice roll? Did I lose the dice roll? Did I go first? Did I go second? What was my opening hand? And it does not guarantee results, which is why I also think like recognizing where the game and even winning fits in your life and not giving it more meaning than it needs to, because you can do all this and you can do the math and you can know what you're winning against and what you're losing against. And like sometimes it just doesn't. If your goal is like, okay, my goal this year is like win a regional, this is not going to mean that you're going to meet the goal. Is it good information to have? And I would focus more on the journey, right? Of learning from your losses as a journey and like improvement as a person, improvement as a player, versus like, I have to have this very specific thing happen because it's still mine. There's so many variables. That's what makes the game great. Like this is taking out the opponent. Like these are all things you can do, but you can't account for your opponent and what ends up happening, or the hand you draw or the hand that they draw. And it just like, it's all going to be so variable. So I also think just focusing on mental and being like, I can do all these things and it doesn't mean I'm going to accomplish the goal. And that's like, fine. That's not the be all end all.
data and trying to increase the win rate against every deck to make it as guaranteed as possible that you win. It's nice when you have a guaranteed matchup that's basically a guaranteed win, but that's not what you should be expecting. Looking at all the matchups, you know that some of them favor you and some of them favor other decks over yours, but this is not a bad thing because not all decks are equally popular. If hypothetically you had a 70% win rate against Tachyon, a 30% win rate against APC, these are just examples by the way, not real statistic, then you may think, damn, if I go to duel, I have to hope my opponent is playing the right deck, or I lose. But not all decks are equally popular. If Tachyon is the most played deck in the game and ABC is popular but not as popular, then your overall win rate will be higher if you choose to play a deck with a good matchup into Tachyon. Instead of trying to beat everything then, if you want a high win rate, you should prioritize having good matchups into the majority of what people are playing. This doesn't just go for one deck either. If 7 decks are meta, and are equally popular, then you would only need a minimum of 4 good matchups within those 7 in order to have more wins than losses. But most of the time there will be a few decks far more popular than the rest, so depending on the meta, you could have good matchups against 2 of the 7 most popular decks, still end up with a positive win rate. This goes back to the point of choosing what you would prefer to lose to. If it means I get a high win rate as a result, then I will happily accept the losses to the more unpopular stuff that will beat me. Sometimes even the most popular deck could be outweighed by the combined weight of the rest of the meta, so if you have good matchups against the rest of the meta but a bad matchup against the best deck, as long as the end result is a high win rate, then that's all that matters. In this scenario, you're actively choosing your losses in order to give you a better chance at winning, meaning that losing is an important part of winning competitively. But what if I told you that losing isn't just good for teaching you and isn't just good for preparing you, but can actually be a tool you use in the moment to get you closer to your goal? Duel Links and Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, our deck lists are hidden until the duel is over in ranked or until the tournament is over in KC Cup and in normal tournament. This is different to some other games where decks or teams are public knowledge before the game starts, so you know everything about what you're playing against. Because of this, there is some element of surprise that can be taken advantage of in this game. They may not know which hand traps you play or what.
And again, this works both ways. I really think this is the type of video if you are feeling really frustrated with the game and you want to win more. I think it's my frustration when I get frustrated with the game. Winning more is not getting to the root of why I'm feeling frustrated and what importance I'm putting on the game in my personal life and in my personal self, right? Winning is not going to get to the root if you're feeling frustrated or having like a negative emotion about the game. Now, if there's something you want to improve on, and I think if it's coming from a place of like, yeah, I just want to improve and get and see how serious can I take this and how can I get a higher win rate, then yeah. But I think if you're losing a lot of games of Yu-Gi-Oh, kind of assessing like, why is it? What are you feeling when this is happening? And what is the goal? And I really think steering away from a goal of winning more, because I think when we start tying, it's like it should be fun. It should be fun. I think that's even when I was reacting to Team Sam's video where of him playing in the YCS. He loves the game and it's fun. And I think sometimes we forget that. Like, this is a hobby. This is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun. And so when you tie everything to winning, it I think can be a slippery slope of forgetting the reason we even want to play the game in the first place.
Face down back row you have. A lot of the time, smart players will be able to use context clues to decipher what back row or hand trap you might have, but even then there are some situations where you can obscure what kind of quick effects you have, like for example, when you have an ignition quick effect in play that can activate in almost any scenario, making it difficult for the opponent to read what your other interactions could be. In a best of one game, clicking the surrender button wouldn't give you any advantage whatsoever, but in a best of 3, or in the higher levels of KC Cup where you're going to be going against the same person again anyway, if you're in a position where you are guaranteed to lose and the opponent uses a card that would in some way give them information about your hidden cards that they do not already have, then by pressing the surrender button, you are taking away some of the knowledge that might have benefited them the next time they duel you. Normal Duel Links tournaments are also on a timer, so you might surrender early when the first sign that the duel isn't worth finishing happened, so that you will have more time to complete the next game, giving the opponent less of an opportunity to win due to time rules. Specifically in KC Cup, surrendering as soon as physically possible when you think that you'll either lose or the opponent might force you.
Can someone tell me what KC Cup is? I'm assuming it's not the Kansas City Cup. But that's what my brain is thinking.
Into a long duel in order to win might lose you points right away. But that extra time you gained by not having your time wasted could actually give you an opportunity to get more points long term. This is a strategy used in most KC Cups by a lot of the best players depending on the format, and sometimes people will play decks that can force the opponent into a grind game just to get quick surrender. So like I said, winning and losing is actually a lot more complicated than you might have thought, and I think that even some of you who clicked this video agreeing with this might have still been surprised about how complicated it can be. If you learned something or just like the way my voice sounds, then like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the bell to get notified next time we drop a video. Have yourselves a good one, guys, and I've been Undead from Team 6K. Sign.
Okay, yeah, I think good video. I think informative in terms of I'm just imagining people who might be looking up this video to watch, and I know I've gone through a lot of phases with playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Where I'm like, do I just suck? Like, I feel like I'm losing. I don't feel successful. And I think where I'm giving you advice that I like gave myself of just like the cautionary tale of tying your enjoyment of the game to winning is a slippery slope. And I get that I still get frustrated. There's still frustrating things. Losing in general is not something I've gotten a lot better about it due to playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I think, it's forced me out of my comfort zone of not immediately being great at something. You know, like when you pick up something new and you're like, what if I'm like a baby genius? What if I'm like the prodigy of, I wasn't. I'm not the baby genius of Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm proud of myself for where I've come and for the work I've put in and for my ability to get better at the game but I think so much of that comes from like wanting to learn about the game and having to overcome the like, I'm losing. I don't want to play anymore because I will get frustrated to the point I need to take breaks or I can't play, and trying to work through that and bringing it back to the goal is fun. This is something that like for pretty much all of us, I'm guessing we're choosing to do along with our jobs and our families and our lives and like our other hobbies and the things that we, have to do. And so trying to keep that in mind too of like, if you're trying to improve, I think this video gives you a lot of reasons to try to reframe that mindset around losing and being like, hey, here's how I can actually use losing games to try to improve. And then again, just setting a realistic goal of what does improvement look like to you. Honestly, improvement to me looks like feeling more confident and feeling like I am doing more in games and actually being able to interact. I think I know where I still get frustrated is when I have games where I feel like I didn't get to do anything, where I just didn't get to actually play. But that's also an unfortunate part of the game too. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do and it is what it is. And sometimes there are things you can do. And that's where after the game, you can be like, man, this is where I could have done better if I had done this play instead of this play. And growth mindset. We love a growth mindset. But yeah, I filmed into the next day. It's now the next day. I do have to mark, I took my medication. So let's mark that I took my medication. The baby is sleeping because this is way past his bedtime. So I'm not gonna show it to baby. But yeah, again, join my Discord if you ever want to leave me recommendations. And yeah, see you on the next one.